I'm just curious how you're liking the scoring distribution. I know at the beginning of the year, obviously you knew Sarah Strong, AZ would be the two most consistent scorers. And it kind of felt like our conversations were, who's going to be that third, right? Is it going to be Sarah Williams? Could it be Blanca? And now halfway through the year, it feels like it could literally be those two. It could be Kaylee. It could be KK, Jana. Are you liking that distribution, or are you kind of hoping more, you want more consistency from more players?
Um, no, I mean, I'm not worried about that. I think of all of those, right now, Blanca probably has the most impact on the game, um, other than other than what Sarah and AZ are doing. So, you know, it's it all comes down to who creates the most opportunities for themselves, and right now I think that seems to be that um, Blanca's put herself in that situation more often than anyone else.
Mhm. Jackie, go ahead.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for taking the time. I'm just curious, as we get into the later half of the season, how much you were considering preparing the group for when teams scout to stop Sarah in particular, and just sort of what the approach is when there is a more complex defense trying to shut her down.
Uh, I kind of think that over the years, our team has been, and it continues to be, uh, more centered on, um, spreading the ball around and not feeling um, like we have to rely on one person. I think, uh, if teams spend extra time on any one individual, I always think they're leaving a lot of things open for someone else. Um, I, I do believe that both Sarah and AZ in particular, those two, are really, really good at creating opportunities for themselves, whether they're being guarded by one person, two people, it doesn't matter. But we go into every game trying to figure out what the approach of the other team is and what the weaknesses that we can exploit. Um, we've played pretty much every kind of non-conference team that there is out there that plays a lot of different styles. So, um, I, you know, I can't predict what's going to happen, but um, I feel pretty good about how we react to that.
Thank you.
Carl.
Gino, Happy New Year, first of all.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Um, Other than being a good shooter, what makes an elite free throw shooter?
I think mental preparation, having a routine that you are committed to, um, understanding um, what it is that makes you a good free throw shooter, believing in yourself. Um, so I would think there's a number of things, and your routine and leads to being confident, and your belief in yourself, and trusting yourself. Um, I would say those are the main ingredients for me.
Is that something you've seen from AZ ever since you started recruiting her?
Um, more so now than before because I think Azzy's getting to the free throw line a little bit more than she has in the past. I like to see her get there even more. But Azzy's very much a creature of habit. She pretty much does the same thing every time she comes to practice to get ready for practice. She has a routine in her shooting, uh, in her warm-ups. So I think she trusts herself and she trusts the process, the routine. Um, and it's gotten better and better every year that she's been here.
Thank you.
Daniel?
What have you seen on tape when you've watched Creighton, given the new group that they have, not having those guys that you saw since you joined the league? Because looking at the numbers, their offense seems like it's doing all right, and maybe their defense is still coming along. But from what you've seen, what does this Creighton team have?
Obviously, when you have a group that they've had over the years and they've been together and they've had a lot of success, when you lose that, and not just one or two, but when you lose pretty much all of it, it is a rebuilding process, so to speak, of how do you get that many players now to have to fit together. And their style of play is the same. It may not look as fluid and as natural, the way those players read off each other and played off each other, but they have the same concepts. They're going to make you play a little bit smaller. They're going to take advantage of the fact that their big kid is a little more mobile. So I think they lack experience, and they don't have the chemistry that their past three teams have had. But the concepts are still the same, and they get the same shots, and they, kind of approach things the exact same way. It's just different people doing it at a different level right now because it's a whole new group.
Thanks.
Maggie?
Yeah, you mentioned on Wednesday that was one of Kaylee's best defensive performances, even if it didn't show up on the stat sheet. How have you seen her kind of get more comfortable and take that step up and play with a little bit more like controlled chaos?
Well, I mean, I think Kaylee's, I think her energy level and her approach is not to the level that KK's is, but it's way higher than it was, in October and November. So I think little by little, she's starting to understand how she can impact the game defensively. And we talk about that all the time, that there can't be a big difference between what KK's giving us and then what you're giving us. And I see it getting closer and closer, where they're similar. And I think that also feeds into Kaylee's offense, kind of is a byproduct of that. So I think we're trending in the right direction there.
Do you see similarities in how Kaylee and KK kind of play off each other versus how KK and Nika played off each other?
No, I think it's flip-flopped, I mean, Nika was the experienced one and KK was trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And now KK is the one that has got it somewhat figured out, and Heckle's trying to figure it out. But it's different, we're able to do more because we have more options with this group than when Nika and KK were together. We're kind of limited in what we could do.
Thank you.
Carl?
Gino, I was looking back at the media guide to your first season, and I was just thinking, kind of, when you got the job, how did you approach the Big East as far as competitive? I remember you finished 7th your first year, and you were so proud of that team for avoiding the 8-9 game. But I was just wondering if you were thinking, like, as you went through it, there were teams you could beat that you could be competitive, but how were you going to beat a St. John's or a Providence or Villanova like that? what was your approach and what do you remember about getting there? Because it did take you some time to beat some of those teams.
Yeah. The first year there was no thought. The first year there was, uh, let's just win enough games that we don't finish eighth or ninth. So we stay out of that game. And there was no real plan. There was no, you know, evaluating all the teams. Let's figure out who on any given night we can beat and take our chances. I think the next couple of years, the second, third year, going into the fourth year, it was, just trying to go as best you could, undefeated at home and 4-4 on the road. I thought if you finish 12-4, you have a chance to win the league. And you knew that Providence, Villanova, St. John's, they were the three at that time that, you could very easily lose, 6 games right there. So you had to figure out a way that with those 3 teams, you could go 4-2 if you could. And the plan became to be a good enough home team that you win every game at home. Then obviously later on it became, you have to go undefeated in the league to win the league because of how much the league changed in a competitive standpoint. But early on, we were just trying to figure out, don't finish 8th or 9th. And then after that, just try to improve every year. So I think we did go 8, 7, 5, and then we won the whole thing, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah. So, it was a pretty big jump there. 8, 7, then 5 was a big jump. And then to win the whole thing, that happened kind of quickly.
Do you feel insulted when people say you have the record you do in your conference because the conference is no good?
Well, I wouldn't say that's the sole reason because for a long time we had the best conference in the country and we were still having undefeated teams. So the record is the record. We played who we were supposed to play. And I would put my non-conference record against anybody in Americas. So how would they explain that one?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jackie?
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up, Geno, in November you talked about how you were looking for your quarter court offense rather than your transition offense to improve because you liked what you were seeing in transition. I guess just from November to now, do you think it's improved and where do you think it needs to go to get to a comfortable place where you want to see it come March?
Yeah, I think we're making progress in our half court offense. We're like most teams though. We get a lot of our opportunities are in transition, but that's most teams. Teams are not getting transition baskets. They're probably not a very good team because if you have to walk the ball up the floor and you have to attack a half court defense all the time, I think you're going to struggle. So we put a lot of effort into how we can turn teams over the best we can, and then how we can score on missed shots in transition or even made shots, getting up the floor and our offense doesn't involve us having to make 10 passes to get a shot. So we try to, execute our stuff quickly. I think we're still, in a lot of ways, we're a very young team. So a lot of the things that we would like to do, we're not great at yet. But I think as we move along, we'll get better at it. You know, and I think come March we'll be much better at it.
Thank you.
Finish up with Daniel.
Just injuries. Last time we talked, you said Morgan seemed to be doing better, and then how's Ice, and then how's Jana?
Jana won't be making the trip with us. Jana is good to go. And Ice won't. Is Ice coming on the trip? Oh, so Ice and Jana won't be making the trip, and Morgan will be on the trip, but she's not available. So that's the status right now.
How are Ice and Morgan just coming along in their recoveries?
They do their rehab every day, and neither of them have been cleared, and we have no timetable when they will be.